Namaste. I'm Reverend Wendy Craig-Purcell here at the Unity Center in beautiful San Diego. Thank you so much for subscribing to this channel. Please make sure that you like the video you've just watched and consider making a contribution on our app or on our website. It's really easy to do, and thank you in advance for that support. It does make a difference. So we have been taking a look at what do we teach? What do we believe in unity? In our denomination, if you want to call unity a denomination, what is it that we teach? What is it that we believe? We took a look in the first week at God. What do we believe about God? And then we looked at what do we believe about humanity? How does unity view mankind, womankind? And last week we explored the power of the mind, what unity understands and believes about consciousness and its importance. And today we're going to take a look at what it is that we actually practice in unity. You hear me oftentimes refer to spiritual practice, and so I want to unpack some of that for you. I remember years ago hearing this question, and it just really stuck with me. And the question was, if you were arrested and accused of being a Christian, would there be enough evidence to convict you? And you can substitute the word Christian for any spiritual practice, right? If you were arrested and accused of being a Jew, would there be enough evidence to convict you? If you were arrested and accused of being a Buddhist, would there be enough evidence to convict you? Same for us in unity. If we were arrested and accused of being a unity person, would there be enough evidence in our life, the way that we live our life, to actually convict us? And so, in unity, we say that unity is not just a way of thinking, it's certainly a way of thinking, but it is absolutely a way of living. I wouldn't be standing here with you and being part of your journey spiritually were it not for this idea that unity is a practice, a way of living. It was my grandmother many years ago who had a neighbor who said to her, "Are you unity?" And my grandmother said, "What's unity?" And then my grandmother's neighbor went on to explain to her something about unity. And my grandmother said, "Well, I never heard of unity." And her neighbor said, "Well, you seem unity. You seem unity because of the way that you talk, the way that you live, the things that you do. You seem unity." And so she invited my grandmother to attend a unity church, and that eventually led to my grandmother inviting me to attend with her. But it was all because my grandmother seemed to live a certain way. She seemed to think a certain way, to talk about life and opportunity and others a certain way. She seemed to do certain things that caused that neighbor to ask her, "Are you unity?" So she would have been accused, arrested, and what? Convicted, right? And so my challenge for us is to think about our spiritual practice as evidence of what it is that we say we believe, as evidence of what it is that we hold to be true. And so as I was thinking about, well, how would I describe in the most broad and inclusive terms what it is that unity practices and what it is that I mean when I say spiritual practice? It falls into 5 general areas, and within those 5 general areas, there are specific tools that I'll touch upon. Each one of these areas in themselves is a whole class, if you will, a whole deeper dive, but at least want to give you this sense of what it is that we practice in unity. So the 5, I'll tell you what they are, and then I'll try to explain them a little bit more. The first is the area of cultivating our inner life. Cultivating our inner life. The second is consciously co-creating our life. The third is respecting the divinity within all people. The fourth is contribution. It's contributing our time, talent, and service. And the fifth is recognizing the sacredness of all life. Those are the 5 areas that we practice. And within those areas are tools, and the tools can change for us a bit from time to time. We may find that certain tools we enjoy using for a while, and then we want to change it up a bit. But nonetheless, the tools will fall under one of those 5 areas. So a closer look at this first area, the area of cultivating an inner life, of stillness, of calm, cultivating an inner life. We don't hear a whole lot in our general culture and society that encourages us to do that. It's something that is really, I think, a part of most all spiritual teachings and practice, but it's certainly a part of unity, cultivating an inner life of stillness and calm. And the tools that we use to do that, the obvious tools are mindfulness, meditation, and prayer, to cultivate an inner life, not just all the things that we do externally, not just filling all the responsibilities that we have. And I suspect that many of us might often feel like we've got so much to do. Does that, anybody else relate to that? So many responsibilities, so many hats that we wear, so many spinning plates. I believe it was Mother Teresa who was talking about how full her life was and how busy she was, and yet that she could not afford not to take the time to pray because she had so much to do that the only way that she was going to be able to do all the things she had to do was through her prayer life, cultivating that inner life. And so meditation and contemplation, mindfulness, are definite practices that fall under this. Jesus said, "Come apart a while." He would often, if you read the Gospels, you will see times in which he removed himself from his work. He removed himself from the crowds. He removed himself from people. He came apart. And I think, come apart or you'll fall apart. Come apart a while. Quiet the mind, quiet the body. The writer and teacher Anne Lamott has a saying I absolutely love. Almost everything will work again if you unplug it for a little while. And the funniest thing is this happened to me just this weekend. My computer went nuts all of a sudden. And I'm like, I live with this thing, I confess. I go to the hairdresser, and I'm known as the woman in the salon who always has her computer. My computer knows the Wi-Fi connections in far too many places. Took my mom to her oral surgery appointment this week, and I'm in the office waiting with my computer. And my computer decided not to work this weekend for a little while. In that scary kind of way, where all of a sudden my mouse was doing things that I wasn't touching the keyboard. And all of a sudden it's all these phantom letters I'm seeing in the Google search bar. I'm thinking, what's going on? I frantically called our favorite IT person here at the church, John Atkinson. I said, help, help. And he finally said, maybe you just need to unplug it. Maybe you need to let it die down completely. And then see what happens when you turn it back on. And you know what? It worked. And I thought, okay, God, this isn't about my computer, is it, God? It's about me remembering what Anne Lamott says, what Jesus said when he said, come apart a while and pray, be still, be quiet. Almost everything will work again if you unplug it for a few minutes, for a while. So where are you? And I ask not with any sense of prying and not with any sense of making you feel guilty or uncomfortable, but where are you in cultivating your inner life? Do you have a deep commitment to it? I encourage you to have a deep commitment to it and to follow it and to practice it. The second, the conscious co-creation of our life. The conscious co-creation of our life. Not just living our life by default, living our life purposefully, by design. And that means, as we explored in depth last week, working at the level of consciousness. In Unity, our practice of prayer is not a prayer to a distant God. It's not a beseeching, begging, bemoaning activity. In Unity, our practice of prayer is called affirmative prayer. And in affirmative prayer, we attempt to make firm in consciousness spiritual truth. In affirmative prayer, we attempt to have an experience of the presence, the energy, the activity of Spirit, of God. And we use this affirmative prayer to help create the circumstances and situations in our lives that we desire. That's not about praying to change God, it's about praying to change us, to change our mind, to change our thinking. That's one of the tools that we use to consciously co-create our life is affirmative prayer. Another of the tools that we use to consciously co-create our life is the tool of visioning, of imagining, of holding in our mind's eye the very thing we are wanting to cultivate or the very thing we are wanting to bring forth in our life experience, to see it in our imagination as vividly as we possibly can, and to bring our feeling nature into that as well. Another of the tools that we use to consciously co-create our life is the tool of gratitude. And why do I say that that's a tool to help consciously co-create our life? I say it is a tool to help us consciously co-create our life because when we are literally practicing and feeling grateful, we are at a different vibrational level. And when we are at a different vibrational level, that difference impacts the energy around us. It impacts what we say, what we do, how we are perceived, the way we are received, the kinds of doors that open or close. So under the banner of consciously co-creating our lives, I would ask you, what are the tools that you use? And much like a tool, there's often some learning involved in how to use that tool, right? I can go into my husband's garage, and I call it my husband's garage because it looks very different than it would look if it were my garage. I tried once organizing his entire workbench. It looked beautiful. Didn't stay that way. He says he couldn't find anything after it was so organized. But anyway, in his garage, there are all sorts of tools, most of which I don't even know by name. I have my own names for them, but most of them I don't know how to use, and I'm sure that I could learn how to use them. I don't think it's just a guy thing and a girl thing. I've just never learned how to operate them. So in the tools that we use in our life, the tools to consciously co-create our life, we might have to do more than just know what they are. We might have to learn how to use them. And so that might mean taking a class on affirmative prayer or taking a class, excuse me, on the power of visioning, or taking a class or understanding better what gratitude really is so that we can become more skillful in using the tool. The third area that we practice in Unity is respecting and honoring the divinity within all people. Within all people. In Unity circles, a phrase is often used. The phrase is, I behold the Christ in you. It is a phrase that's used to acknowledge the divine presence within one another. I tend not to use that phrase because the term Christ, though it was not Jesus' last name, it was a title, and it referred to the idea of the anointed one, it can set up a barrier. I'm thinking of what Daniel shared about his songs in his album, Hymns for Humanity, that he wanted to write songs that could speak of Spirit or God, but not offend anyone. And so while I don't typically use the phrase, I behold the Christ in you, I'm saying the same thing when I say to you and I look at you, Namaste. I'm saying that I recognize, no matter how you may be showing up in this moment or how I may be showing up in this moment, I recognize that there is that in you that is special. There is that in you that is holy. There is that in you that is divine. And no matter who you are and where you've been or what you've done, that's still there. That's still there. Yes, with some people, it may seem that there's a lot covering it, and it's a little harder or a lot harder to see it. But the practice of beholding that and respecting that in another means that I don't hold you hostage to the worst thing you've ever done. It means that there are tools such as compassion and kindness that I extend to you. It means that as hard as it may be, I'm going to practice and use tools of forgiveness. Doesn't mean I condone horrific behavior, but it does mean that I know that there is still something in you just as there is in me. That is holy, that is sacred, that is divine. As I was looking over my notes this weekend and was thinking about this particular point, respecting and honoring the innate divinity within all people, I was thinking about the concrete work, for example, that we in the Unity Center have been doing in the field of racial equity and anti-racism. I think about the history of Unity in terms of its inclusivity, in terms of anyone's sexual orientation, that Unity has always been about seeing the good in one another. And I was reminded of a teaching of Pema Chodron. Some of you are familiar with the Buddhist teacher Pema Chodron. I like her work a lot. And I remember a part of her teaching goes like this: when you are inclined to judge or criticize another, even if it's only in your thinking, even if the words never come out of your mouth, but in your mind you're judging and criticizing another, she said, notice and then finish the thought cycle in your mind with the words, and just like me. I find that powerful. If I find myself judging someone, they're slow or they're negative or they're critical, the invitation is to stop, to notice that, to stop and go, oh, just like me. What Pema is trying to say is we all show up in a variety of different ways, in beautiful ways and in some not so beautiful ways. And I suppose we could also flip that in a positive way when we are noticing something wonderful about another, to say, and just like me, because we're capable of that as well. So respecting and honoring the divinity within all others. And so the tools are tools of compassion, of meta-kindness meditations. May I be happy, may I be healthy, may I be free of pain and suffering, may I know the comfort and ease of well-being, may my heart be at peace, may you be happy, may you be healthy, may you be free of pain and suffering, may you know the comfort and ease of well-being, may your heart be at peace, and extending that kind of meditation as a tool further and further to include those that you and I find difficult to love. That's a tool. It's a way we can literally practice this. The tool of forgiveness. You know if there are people you are still bitter over or holding hostage to their past. That's an area for you, for me, to get in and do our work. The fourth area is contributing our service and our resources. It means that we recognize that we are the hands and the heart of this presence that we call God, that we are needed. We are needed to make this world a better place. And so we show up willing to extend ourselves, willing to volunteer, willing to help out, willing to give of our talent, willing to give of our treasure. Albert Schweitzer said, "The only ones among you who will be really happy are those who will have sought and found how to serve." There's even research and studies today that show that those who extend themselves to others, that those who volunteer, those who serve and get out of their own little world of only caring about and for themselves and their immediate family members, that it is one of the ways to deal with depression. It's one of the ways to bring about greater health and well-being. And so under this banner of contributing our service and our resources means that we volunteer. It means that we help. It means that we recognize that we have something that can make a difference in the world. And it doesn't just include volunteering. It includes contributing our hard-earned dollars to those places or organizations that are doing good work. It means making a financial commitment. It means contributing. In Unity, though we don't teach it in a guilt-producing way, in Unity we practice and we believe in the principle of tithing, of giving 10% of what we receive to where we are being spiritually nurtured and fed. To giving not just when we show up, but to giving where we are fed because we want that place to continue to be there for us and for others. And so one of the areas in which we practice in Unity is this area of being a contribution, both in terms of service and in terms of support. And the last is under the banner of the reverence for all of life. For all of life, not just for two-legged creatures like us, but for all of life. And so what that looks like for us in Unity, to hold the energy of reverence for the sacredness of all of life, is that we look at areas of consumption. We look at the footprint we are leaving on the planet. Things like reusing, recycling, repairing, all of those things that we hear out of the environmental movement. We look at those not as a burden, but as a way of demonstrating our love and our recognition that we live in this beautiful planet and that all of life deserves a sacred response. And so we do look at ourselves. We don't point the finger at the other and say, you should do something different. But we look within and we say, what are the changes that maybe I could make? How heavily am I walking on the planet? What kind of car do I drive? How far could I walk? Do I recycle? How much garbage do I put out? Do I compost my food? I don't need to tell you the areas to look. You already know, right? Of course you do. I do too. And if you ever come to my house, you'll meet my wonderful daughter, Jennifer. We call her the environmental police. But she does it in a loving way. Or even here, we have 2 different kinds of trash baskets that the city requires you to have in your offices now, and they'll fine you if you don't put trash in the right part. Did you know that? Even churches, they come out and they're like, no, that belongs. She'll go through my trash if I've accidentally put the paper in the kind of trash can that it's not supposed to go in. It's supposed to go in the recycling. And I know better. And I could get angry and upset. Or I could go, you know what? I'm still a work in progress. There are things that I need, better habits I need to develop. Greater mindfulness. Does it take time and effort? Yeah. Yes. But our spiritual path invites us to grow and become the most conscious being that we can be, and to show up in a very deliberate way in how we live life for ourselves and for each other, because we really are about, to use the words of Martin Luther King Jr., committed to creating the beloved community. And I think that all the things I talked about today, the 5 areas, all of those areas, cultivating an inner life, consciously co-creating your life, respecting the innate divinity of all, contributing of your service and your dollars, and recognizing the sacredness of all life, as we have tools and practice in each of those areas consistently, then we are doing a lot to help construct and sustain the beloved community. And that's how we get to peace on earth, I believe. Namaste.